Welcome to the Lead Pedal Podcast with your host, Bruce Outridge, where he talks all things trucking. Now let's get rolling.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to another edition of the podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Outridge, and today we're going to be talking with Dave Elniski. Now, Dave is from Alberta, and he's with the Alberta Motor Truck Association. Also wrote a book called Protec Proactive, and we're going to find out all about this book, what it's about, why he wrote a book, and yeah, exactly what it could do for you. If you're somebody that's new to the trucking industry, or somebody that's, doesn't have that giant team of compliance experts on your staff, then this book may be for you. And it's free. Well, now it's even better to get it, right? Anyway, hey, let's get that. Before we tell you about that, though, let me tell you a little bit about Bison Transport. That's right. You know, they are looking for drivers out of their Calgary, Winnipeg, and Mississauga terminals. If you've got a couple years experience, if you're somebody who's interested in team, or somebody that's just a good driver with a good attitude, then Bison Transport wants to talk to you. That's right. You can go to bisondriving.com. They've got positions both in truck and outside of the truck. They're also looking for mechanics, stuff like that. So if you want to be part of a team and they're known as one of the safest fleets in Canada, then you certainly want to check them out. Go to bisondriving.com. Tell them we sent you. All right, let's find out about this book here. Dave Elniski. Elniski, that's right. I said it right this time. Now, Dave came to me and through the Alberta. In fact, he was suggested. I believe by either Josh Hannaberry or my friend Dave out there, who and I'm not sure which one did it. Anyway, I should probably have known that, but I don't. So anyway, thank you to whoever recommended. I've got a lot of friends out in Calgary. Looking forward to getting out and seeing some of them, actually. So he's with the Alberta Motor Truck Association, and he's also been, he's a safety person himself, been in the industry for a long, long time, works closely with the association doing what they do, and he's wrote his book. Now, this is not his first book. It's the book is called Protec and Proactive, and it's more of a resource guide for people in the trucking industry, and I kind of wondered what would we need this for? You know, it's funny when you're in the industry and you go to a lot of conferences and stuff, you kind of assume everybody's got all of this stuff. Like, we've been talking about a lot of this stuff for a long time. But he said, no, that's not the way that there's a lot of people who do not make it to those conferences and are, either coming into the industry and maybe not understand all the lingo. And this is one thing that I know through training drivers is the lingo we use in the industry is not the lingo that is used by the ministry or, who enforcement or whoever's doing that. So I'm looking forward to talking to Dave about how this book is going to work and what he's going to do and how you can get it. Even more reasons to get into it for sure. All right. So, hey, before we do that, though, let me tell you a little bit about Compliance Mentors. That's right. They're new with us, and they actually have, they're a safety group all across Canada, right? So they're based out of Brampton, Burlington is where they are, but they also have offices in Alberta. They also have offices in BC. They have a team all across the country. And if you've done any homework on them at all, their name says they're all about compliance, but I can tell you what, there's a deeper meaning there. I actually interviewed Gitu Mahajan, who is one of the leaders of that organization, and she had a family member that was killed by a truck driver in India, not here in Canada. So she has a deeper connection and is more passionate than anybody I've ever seen about making sure that carriers are operating properly and making sure that they're driving safely. It's not just about compliance to her. Don't you want someone like that? That's right. So check out Compliance Mentors with a Z. ComplianceMentors.com is where you can check them out and find out all the services they have. They can get you up and going, and you know that you'll be getting somebody who's very passionate about their job and not just telling you how to be compliant or why you should be compliant. It's more than just the lawsuit. It's about the life. I think that's very cool. All right, let's get into this interview with Dave. I can't wait to find out all about this book, a resource guide. Any book in the trucking industry right there is enough to want to find out what's going on. All right, here we go. Let's get started. All right, everybody on the line. I've got Dave Elniski from the Alberta Motor Truck Association and author of the book Protect Proactive. How are we doing today, Dave?
No, I'm doing pretty good, Bruce. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, happy to be here.
So tell us what you do. What is your role today? We'll get into your book and stuff in a minute, but tell us what your role is, what you do as far as work or whatever.
Yeah, so I guess well, my role at the Alberta Motor Transport Association is their advisor in safety and compliance. So a lot of that work is working with companies and drivers and helping them navigate the industry from a regulatory perspective and implement best practices. But a lot of it's also working internally to help us build our own training and, advising our different partners or whatever that might look like. Well, writing this book, for example, was a result of this job.
Right.
So that's a big part of it. I mean, I was a long haul truck driver for a number of years, got into fleet safety management, and then that led to AMTA. And outside of this, I'm doing my PhD in public health, where I'm also looking at trucking safety. So this just school work, it's all trucking and typically from a safety or compliance angle.
Okay. How long did you drive for?
I guess I would have to say, about six years or so, but the last two of those were mostly in the office because I was mostly that was kind of when I was transitioning from driving to fleet safety, but I always kind of still go on the road fairly regularly. But
it's always interesting. I drove for 25 years, and a lot of people don't realize the transition. I mean, you went to safety, I went to this, whatever we call this. I could just call it media, but it's funny. There's lots of opportunities if you get that experience in the seat. It's great to do that. Tell us. I'm familiar with the Ontario Trucking Association here. I'm assuming yours is similar, but tell us what the Alberta Motor Truck Association does, kind of what their focus is.
Sure. Well, I mean, so I'm sure you heard of the Canadian Trucking Alliance, like the federal. We're so like the OTA, then we're a provincial association affiliated with them. So we have like that lobbying and advocacy component that you see in the other ones. But we're a fairly large association because we've also got an arm of the organization that I work in, funded mostly by workers' compensation, where we're a certifying partner. We provide certificate of recognition, safety certifications for companies from an occupational health and safety perspective. We've got that lobbying component. We've got an industry advancement department, which is focused on alternative fuels, new driving technology, that kind of stuff. What's the future of the industry look like? And then, our education and training department as well, which is quite significant. And so that's kind of, so I'm in that safety part of the organization, but it's fairly broad in what they do.
Okay. Yeah. So I hear things are really changing out in Alberta. I hear a lot from here. I'm at all the conferences, much like I'm sure you are out in Alberta, in Ontario, and they're always referencing things that are going on across the country. And I think in Ontario here, we're trying to get things more aligned across the country, seems to be where things are going. Your book, Protect and Proactive, first of all, why a book in 2025, Dave? How come you didn't do like a video series or what's going on with that? Why a book? Why did you feel this book was important?
Well, I like writing, I guess, part of it. So if I were to just choose maybe I'm just a boring person, Bruce, because honestly, when I look at legislation, I'm I'm a Times New Roman, black and white kind of, hey, that's fine. What do we need other forms of media for? But I recognize that's a thing. So partially why it was a book is because, this is the second one I put out with AMTA. It creates this nice resource that we can use for then things like video series and bulletins and talks and stuff. So we have that centerpiece of knowledge, I guess. But why a book? I mean, it wasn't originally intended to be. Originally, we just had questions internally about safety technology because it's such a huge area. And I was tasked with, okay, well, can we put a paper together, a resource, and start talking about safety technology? So we have some institutional knowledge. We can share stuff with our members. But boy, I mean, the questions were big questions. And eventually it was you know what, this is a book. This is so much here. We might as well approach it from that perspective. So we figured as it's available freely online and you can get paperbacks on Amazon, cost recovery only, the lowest Amazon will sell it for, because we want that information out there. But it's a big area. It's such a big area that there was just that much content to go over.
Did you have a hard time writing the book? I've got 6 books out and a couple were in the trucking industry. And, I am sure you're very similar to me where you're at a lot of conferences. Being in safety, I'm sure you attend, multiple meetings and conferences. And some of the stuff that you and I would probably hear at conferences, we think are pretty basic. Everybody knows this, right? And I was, perusing through the book there a little bit, and I'm going, wow, they're talking about things that have been out for a while. Did we really need to do that? Like stuff like there's Driver Inc. in there, and there's a lot about technology in there. Why did you have a hard time, I guess, keeping it back to the basics when you're writing? Or because I think if you've got a lot of information, it's hard to kind of tone it down and say, okay, who's the person that would use this the most that may not know this stuff? Did you struggle with that at all? Or
I do struggle with that, and with this one took a denser approach,
right.
kind of under the logic that there's no one book resource, whatever it's going to be,
Right.
that's going to cover this topic for all the audiences we want to cover it for. So I figure I'll start with this kind of, it's denser, it's more complex perhaps, but also intended to read more like a safety management book you might get at Chapters and want to read on a flight, like that kind of a thing. But it sort of was, that was kind of the approach there, was technical. And in terms of like the basics, I mean, one thing that, when I was doing my own research here and interviewing people for this book and looking at, but what do we know about safety technology and all that, is it's one thing that came out is that there is no standardizing body, for example, that says this is what lane departure means. No, it's up to manufacturers, it's up to the industry. Like the language is kind of interchangeable. So a big part of it just became, we just kind of need a guide to talk about these different types of technology in non-proprietary language. So if you want to know what this stuff is, okay, here's language. And then if we talk about lane departure, well, then in there, hey, it's also sometimes called this. So part of it's just navigating it. And that's probably half the book right there. It's like a field guide, I guess.
Yeah.
Before getting into things like, is it effective and return on investment and those topics. So that was sort of the intention there, was we'll just kind of cover it all, create a foundation, and then kind of see where it goes from there.
I think that's the biggest problem we've got with the transportation industry, is the terminology and the technology. I used to do some training for some of the training schools here in Ontario, and that was the problem in class. In the book, it had the proper terminology that you would use, at the ministry, but that's not what any of us use, on the road when we're doing stuff, and it gets confusing because people are going, well, wait, what does that mean? And I don't know about Alberta, but I know just for the licenses, I think you guys call a commercial license a class 1 out in Alberta. We call it a class A here in Ontario. It's the same license, basically. It's just different terminology. So who are you hoping really gets this book? Is this made for that person who's just coming into maybe a transportation career or a safety career, or is it for somebody who's already seasoned and then, kind of wants to keep it on their shelf and flip back when they, need to just kind of look up something? Who do you feel the book is for at the best?
I think, probably the most, probably the best audience, based on that question, I would say would be your company managers, owners, safety folks, but also at like smaller size organizations too. So it's written more conversationally than, let's say, I would maybe write like a more technical document. It's kind of intended for someone who's like, okay, like I'm busy, I'm running a company, or I'm a busy safety professional. I know there's lots to know about safety technology. I hear it all over the place, but where do I start? Well, this is a place you can start. Taking a lot of that information. I mean, one way I could look at it is like, I've done the Googling for you.
Right.
Why don't you just take a look at this, and that might kind of answer a lot of questions and then lead to some more targeted ones, with the idea being, like that smaller, medium-sized carrier, and then larger ones as well too, might be interested more in the insights from the larger companies I interviewed. That's kind of the intended audience. But that being said, I think it's also quite appropriate for, well, people who are involved in a safety technology company, or a government regulator, maybe even an academic who's just kind of curious, well, what's the trucking industry talking about? Like those people, I think, as well would benefit from reading it, might find it interesting. But it's ultimately targeted at helping trucking companies navigate this space. It's complex. So the idea here was, well, can we kind of cut through some of the competing articles and, sales type information, and just kind of create a resource that we can offer for free that is like, look, we just want the information out there. There's no strings attached. And it's done with, I guess what I call an academic rigor as well too. Like it is meant to be non-biased, and also here's the information that we have to date. Make of it what you will.
Right. Right, right. Sounds good. How far did you go with technology? I know for me, we were in conferences maybe a year, maybe 2 years down the road. And the big thing we were talking about was, brake sensors. We were talking about driverless trucks and all that. I was at a conference on Monday and Tuesday, and they were talking all about AI. So how far have you gone with, I haven't had a chance to read the book. How far have you gone in the book as far as technology, and how are you planning on keeping up with that? Because it seems like it's changing by the week, not the year like it used to be, right?
Yeah, no, it was a great question there because I think that for the last part of that question there about keeping up on it, yeah, this is a topic that's going to change quickly, and I think that because half of this book is like describing safety technology types and stuff, probably and a logical next step might be like having that on a website. It's a little easier to update, but
Right.
In terms of how far I went, it was not an exploration of what I'd say the flavor of the day. Like AI is a big one now. ELDs were big when they were,
Right. Yeah.
we were kind of moving in that direction. That's not really the intention. It is about current technology
Yeah.
and past technology that's still relevant today that is available to carriers. That's what it's about. So yeah, even talking about AI, talking about autonomous vehicles, but that's not really a dominant theme. It's more about what is available today, where there's evidence to show that it's effective, that you can bring into your operations.
Right.
So I'm not really like kind of making like predictions about, well, AI is going to shake us up, or this is a self-driving trucks in 5 years or whatever. No, it's just what we have on the market today. Be aware of these other developments. But while it's fun to talk about those things, when we're actually making a fleet decision, use the evidence, use the data, and here's how to do it. That's a big part of the book, is just how to navigate different data sources and kind of make your own decisions.
Yeah, I think in trucking we went from having like I know we were behind the technology. Probably even I was a fleet supervisor almost it was just over 20 years ago, and we were just getting Qualcomm in at the time, and so, all of that stuff. And now you look at where we are today, and boy, everything is sensors and all of this stuff. It's almost too much. I don't know if we were able to keep up with it as far as the best use for it. What are some of the big issues going on in Alberta? Bring me up to speed before I get out there in another month or so. What's going on out there? Are they training? I think is probably the big one here, and road safety. Road safety's just gone crazy here, not just in trucking, but in the driving population in general. What are you guys talking about in Alberta at the Motor Truck Association?
Well, I mean, some of the big ones, well, you mentioned driver inc, for example. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like employee misclassification, that's a big one. Things that AMTA, especially in my part of the organization, we talk about a lot these days. First of all, your occupational health and safety, in addition to that trucking specific, that national safety code, CBOR, safety fitness certificate, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
You also have the occupational health and safety rules to follow in labor. So psychological health and safety, mental health in the workplace, those kinds of things. We talk about that a lot because we want the industry to recognize all these safety rules apply.
Right.
But it's your OHS stuff that's about protecting people from injuries and, addressing well-being concerns and that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure that carriers kind of have a full picture there. Training is always a topic as well. Alberta right now is moving in the direction of having truck driving be a trade, for example.
Yeah, we're talking about that.
So, and that's a big one. There's a lot of support behind that, so I mean, like we're kind of, these are things that are happening, that are kind of main topics. But in my area of the organization, it's primarily safety development and what can we do, and how do we actually apply this? Because, right. I mean, AI is a big one now, right? But I mean, like, a few years ago, a big topic at conferences still is mental health, and rightfully so. But, I think, we are aware of this topic.
Right.
So how do we actually action it, though, at a company? What do you actually have to do to bring the, like, well, I want that, or have compliance requirements, so maybe I want it or I don't want it, but I have to do it. Either way, how do you actually do it at the level of the company? So that's something we talk about quite a lot,
right.
Especially in my area.
Good. So as somebody who wrote a book on technology and being in safety yourself and the safety issues we have on the road today, do you feel technology is helping us or hurting us? I'm just interested in your opinion, and as to whether we've got so much technology, but it seems like to me we're still talking about brakes out of adjustment, which have been around since 1982 when I got my license and started driving, and we haven't really solved that problem, and that's probably one of the biggest problems we have. What are your thoughts just on how technology's helping us being safer? Is it really working as well as we kind of hope it will?
Well, if I speak more from my role as like a PhD student in public health looking at road safety, I'd say that technology has been very beneficial in general in Canada and the US. Like, I mean, since fatalities and collision rates were kind of spiking in the 60s, 70s. I mean, the country has made significant and steady progress, and over the last 10 years, continuing to drive down the number of fatalities despite increases of traffic and stuff like that. And this is a large part of this is better infrastructure, better vehicles, that kind of stuff. So I mean, technology is definitely plays a role. Now, if we talk more about trucking, like running a trucking company, is technology going to help me? Is it going to hinder me? I think that it's simply a tool, and how a person uses it is what's critical.
Right.
So, a major theme in this book is that there's very, very few pieces of technology in this industry that you can just buy for your fleet and then see the benefits. An example would be something like automatic emergency braking, for example. Well, all you have to do is you spec it with your vehicle and how the vehicle has it, and it uses it when it needs to, and otherwise you don't have to do anything.
Right.
But very few pieces of technology are like that. They require active management. They require the carrier having the staff knowledge to make the best of it. If you have telematics in all your vehicles, great, but if all you're doing is collecting data and doing nothing with it, then you might as well not have it. In fact, it's a liability because
Right.
in some respects. So that's a big part of it. Is it's like, yes, the technology is here to help, but that doesn't mean but there's also so much flexibility in how you could approach it. Like, you can have a company that, because they've got a good safety culture, it's clear that they care about their drivers, their other staff, that they don't, they might not use a lot of what we would call cutting edge technology, but they manage their operations well. They employ professional drivers, they keep them happy, and they have a safe operation. Then you might have a company that, oh yeah, we just safety, everything with technology. We want lots of technology, but they don't really have the management and safety culture to back it up, and they're not going to see the benefits.
Right.
So it really is more about like, the companies really need to kind of be like introspective, like, well, what can we actually accomplish? What do we have in terms of staff resources? Are we going to be able to do the things the sales rep is saying we have to do to make this effective or not? And those are the questions that I think are critically important.
Yeah.
Tech will help. It's effective. It definitely is. But it has to be understood in what context and what do you have to do to make it be successful.
Yeah, I've got lots of tech in my operation. Sometimes I just want to read a book. There's way too much stuff going on in here.
There you go. Right?
I'm sure you know, Dave. I'm sure you know. So where do people get the book? I know they can get it online. Is that the preferred way? Is it? Do you have to be a member? Because I know, Ontario Trucking Association, Alberta, a lot of times you have to be a member. Can anybody get this book, or is it just for the members?
Anybody can get the book from our website. You Google AMTA. You might have to spell Alberta Motor Transport Association, because there's also the something Massage Therapy Association. Okay. So sometimes we're fighting with them on Google. But anyways, and they might have a great fleet safety tech book. I don't know. I haven't checked. I should ask them. But anyways, you Google AMTA Safe ProTech Proactive. You can get the book freely on our website, regardless of your status as a member or not. And in terms of, you can buy it on Amazon as well, Amazon.ca. It'll come as a paperback. It looks like $14, and that's just the minimum price Amazon you have to sell it for their printing costs.
Yeah,
we don't make any money off it. I don't make money off it. The idea here is as part of our mission of like arming the industry with knowledge, helping them navigate. So that's really, it's accessible to everybody. And in terms of a preference, it's up to you. If you like it digital, great. If you want the paperback, we wanted to have that be an option too. So that's kind of why we chose Amazon there. But yeah, it's out there for everybody. And yeah, I've had a lot of people out of the US who've kind of read it or talked to me about it and stuff like that. Because the topic is, yes, we're the Alberta Motor Transport Association, but I mean, this applies definitely outside of Alberta, and the industries are far more similar. They are different on both sides of the border. So yeah, I mean, it's applicable broadly.
You were mentioning this is your second book. Is the first book the same theme about technology, or tell us a little bit about the first one?
No, it's a shorter book. Ebook, I guess. We've owned that one's really typically just been made available digitally on our website. It's on psychological health and safety. It came out in 2022 when that was a newer concept in the industry, and it was that book is centered on, again, small to medium-sized carriers, providing them with some best practices that they can implement in their operations to address that side of occupational health and safety. So that was a more targeted, shorter, like, okay, you're aware of these compliance requirements. You're a small company. You don't have a team of people who can discuss employee wellness like 1,000 truck company might. what can you do today? And that was what that book was intended to. So practical.
Okay, so is that still available? People can get both books?
Yeah, that's on our website. That one we haven't made that one available on Amazon, but again, freely available digitally. So it's quite a bit shorter. So
that's probably the way I think most people can get it. I know I like both. I like paperbacks when I'm at home, but boy, when you're traveling, there's nothing like ebooks or whatever to put on a phone and have access to everything. And something like that is, I think, something that people may want to just keep on their digital phones, because I know a lot of times we get new people coming to conferences and they're hearing some of this lingo when they're talking, at panels or what have you. And to be able to look up some of that and kind of get a reference and, that's what, or even when you get back to your office to say, okay, here's what they were talking about in that panel. I think sometimes people miss that. There's so much going on at a conference or a presentation. So that's amazing. What's the third book? Are we moving on? Are we going in the third book? Any you want to divulge the information?
I think it should be something autobiographical, something about how no idea at this point in time. There might be something. I have some personal ideas resulting from the work I'm doing in my schoolwork, but at this point, we don't have anything on the docket right now.
You could title it "Dave Cracks the Code."
There you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
Dave, are you independent? Did you want to mention your service, or are you your own safety consulting or whatever you do?
Oh no! I just work for the Alberta Motor Transport Association, and then my PhD stuff, which is separate, but very related in terms of the topics I'm covering. But no, I don't. No, I just AMTA, PhD, and that's pretty much it. So.
PhD, all the acronyms and the letters.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for writing that. I think it's going to be very inspirational and give people a reference, which I think a lot of people need. I know I'm part of. Do you guys have like a fleet safety council? We have that in Ontario. Do you have that out in Alberta? Is there things like that, like a safety group or anything like that? Different safety groups. Probably you guys would have it. The Alberta Motor Truck Association might have safety.
We sort of do, yeah. Like we have our we have various committees, for example. Like we have an oil field committee. We actually just started some committees more focused on like lighter vehicles, so your landscape companies, that kind of stuff, and passenger transport. And then within Alberta too. I mean, there's it's quite a few different safety organizations that looking at in different industries from different angles. So, for example, we're a certifying partner. We offer the certificate of recognition, so an occupational health and safety program you can implement. So then there's events like the Alberta Health and Safety Conference, which is all the certifying partners, and then there's different initiatives for different groups. So there's quite a few. But I couldn't tell off the top of my head if the direct the equivalent of the Fleet Safety Council would be, though.
Yeah, well, you probably have it there anyway. I'm going to urge people to get out to those groups. I'm a member of a lot of groups, and it's a wealth of information. And I guess culture is the big thing for safety here. So if everybody's promoting safety and learning about safety, hopefully they go back and make their individual fleets safer. But thanks for doing the book, Dave. Thanks for what you guys are doing and promoting the industry and tech in the industry and safety and all of that kind of stuff. We really appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Bruce. Thanks for spreading the word as well. I like the work you do.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon. Hope to see you out in Alberta sometime.
Okay.
Oh, that was a great interview with Dave. If you want to check out that book, then I'd suggest you go to amta.ca. That's the website where you can get the book, and it's called Protect Proactive. Well done, David. Great to see that there for sure. And check out the Alberta Motor Truck Association in Alberta to find out all the things they are allowed to do that can help your company. Because if you're in Alberta, let's all work together across the country. Why don't we make this, I don't want to say it because I'll sound like somebody down south, but let's just improve our industry. Let's go there for sure. Hey, you know what? Before we go, though, let me tell you a little bit about Driver Check. Did you know that they're having their Fitness for Duty Summits coming up at the end of October? That's right, October 29th. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're in Alberta or Ontario or BC or anywhere else because it is a virtual event this year. So go to drivercheck.ca, get your tickets, and I can tell you, if you've attended their live events before or even their webinars that they've had, they do an awesome job. You're going to get information that you will not get anywhere else to keep your workplace safe. Learn about drug and alcohol testing changes, learn about cannabis in the workplace. I can tell you, and it's humorous. Dr. Adler is hilarious when she speaks. So you want to check this out. All right. So go and check that out. Drivercheck.ca. Tell them that we sent you. I know you're going to love it. It's virtual, so you don't even have to get out of your pajamas. So while you're reading that book that Dave just wrote, you could actually be watching the seminar at the same time. All right, my friends. We'll talk to you later. Be good out there. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Subscribe on whatever platform you're getting us on, and we will talk to you later.
This has been another episode of the Lead Pedal Podcast. For more information or to subscribe to the podcast, visit theleadpedalpodcast.com and be sure to follow the podcast on Facebook and Twitter.